This week on Filthy Hope.
And then I remember darkness, really. I don't remember hearing anything. I don't remember seeing anything. But I remember being aware that it was really dark. And I thought, man, this is weird. What the heck is going on? And I sort of tried to focus, and I could hear this faint noise in the background. And it was my friend, and he was just yelling. And as I listened, I realised he was yelling my name. He was going, Taylor, Taylor. And I still can't see anything. And then I remember him saying, Taylor, you've fallen into the fire.
This episode of Filthy Hope was produced with the support of our Patreon members. If you want to support us here at Filthy Hope Studios financially, the best and easiest way to do that is to head over to patreon.com/filthyhope and become a patron. For just the cost of a cup of coffee every month, you get access to every episode a day early, totally ad-free, with a bonus 20-minute segment of Filthy Hope exclusive to Patreon members. You'll also get access to things like merch and tickets for live events before everyone else. So once again, that is patreon.com/filthyhope to become a Patreon member. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here, welcome. On this podcast, we spend time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life, and culture intersect. My name is Pastor Jonty, and joining me is Rev Ness.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm really excited about today.
Yes, we have a very, very exciting guest, which is going to be part one of a two-part episode. We couldn't stop him.
I know.
So we got two episodes out of it.
I knew he was going to be epic.
Part one, which is this week, is going to be, I think, just listening to his story for the first time was just like so challenging and so inspirational.
He is an inspiration, all right.
Pastor,
Taylor.
Rally car drifter, Taylor Forward, who some may have seen the Small Town Drifter doco on SBS. If you haven't, the link will be down below. You can see him in action down there.
Now we've got to, for people that don't know what a drifter is, it's kind of like rally car driving, he described, wasn't it? Sort of like they do this perfect sliding in their very fast cars that's choreographed to the nanosecond of slippage and slidage at fast speed right up the arse of another driver. It's just whether or not you're the chaser or the lead car. It's just, the pressure of that would just be off the charts, Jonty.
Yeah.
He's inspirational, isn't he?
And how you've met him before. So maybe before we jump over to the interview, how did you meet Taylor?
So Taylor and I are a part of a group called the Pastors Inner Circle that Reverend Dr. Andrew Ranucci runs. And I'm a part of this lovely group of ministers from all around the country that get together under the mentorship of Andrew, and we learn together and grow together. And when I first started in ministry, in a congregation, I really needed the support of other congregational ministers to learn from, and they have been really supportive. And this is where I met Taylor. And we've been through 1 year together, and now we're in our second year together. It's just fantastic. His story is epic. It's humble. It's humbling to listen to.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful man.
So without further ado, I reckon let's jump over. We're going to see you on the other side. But for now, please enjoy our interview with Pastor Taylor Forward.
Hi, Taylor.
Hello.
So good to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, keen.
Oh, it's so exciting to have you. For all our listeners out there, this is Taylor Forward. He is a pastor at the A2A church down in Penguin near Devon. Yeah, the Rock near Devonport in Tasmania. Oh my God, 3-finger country down there, brother. Can you show me your fingers? Have you got all your fingers?
Oh, look, all 10.
Okay.
And no scars. I've got plenty of scars, but not on my neck.
I don't understand the neck scar.
What, really?
Oh, as in
Two heads.
Transylvania.
No,
Oh no,
everyone
two
always
heads.
reckoned that we had two heads.
Oh well, that too. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
good.
that
We've
too.
we've got the Tassie stereotypes off the bat straight away. I
I
love
know.
it. Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
we re-record that?
No, no, no.
Is that
It's all
offensive?
staying in. It's all staying in.
It's not offensive. Are you offended by that?
Well, no, I'm not. And you know what? Like, it's always been something that people have ragged on against Tasmanians. It has shifted, I would say, in the last 5 or so years. People are starting to uncover Tassie. It is Australia's best kept secret. So
My
people are
husband.
migrating.
Yeah. Oh, and my husband says about Tassie and also the South Island of New Zealand, he says that when God did creation, that he got to Tassie and South Island of New Zealand and went, it is good.
He's a godly man, your husband. He's a godly man.
He says just absolutely, like you said, it's a cracking, magnificent part of the world.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It's beautiful. I'm super fortunate that I've got to do quite a lot of traveling, and I always love coming back home, back to Tassie. I was actually not even born here though, so I'm technically not. I call myself a Tasmanian, but I was born in Victoria.
Oh, so you're you've imported yourself there.
Yeah, sort of. My parents are both Tasmanian though, but they just mum popped me out in Victoria.
Oh, I love that. Go, Mum. Well, it's got a great ring, your story. I have heard it a couple of times, and it is one of the epic Jesus encounter stories that I've heard. And because I know you, I am so excited to share you with our community because they're going to love you. Can you just hold up your hands, just your arms, so people can see all your ink? Because I want to talk about your ink.
Yeah, this
as
is
well. That's the one. Yeah,
it's upside down.
Yeah,
There's a story. It's a weird one, and it's not weird because of me. It's weird because of Ness.
Yeah, but we'll go there. We'll go there shortly. We'll go there. I'm going to write myself a note so we don't forget the ink. Okay, the ink and the wink, should I say? So, can I just ask you? You are a pastor. You're covered in ink. You're a really cool young man, and you're a drifter. So when I started to understand about drifting, I thought of it as being like some version of rally car driving on really batshit crazy roads, fast and furious and mental, and you must be a bit unhinged. And then I think to myself, but you're a pastor and you've got this other hustle going on that doesn't seem very Jesus-y or churchy in my brain. I'm just wondering, can you unpack for us about what drifting is and then share with us your story? Because it is just, it's unique.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about drifting. I do love Jesus more than drifting, but it's pretty damn close. I suppose, Len, we'll weave in between and timelines and whatnot. But a big part of my story was that I was aware of what the church was, and I was aware of this figure Jesus. Growing up in a Catholic school, not a Christian family though, and when I eventually did get saved, I was so. I use the word pissed off. I was so frustrated, annoyed, pissed off that no one told me all the stereotypes weren't real. No one told me that I didn't have to give up all the exciting things of life to pursue faith. And from a very young age, I was always really into anything extreme. Building dodgy ramps as little kids with my brother, and then that went to motorbikes and skateboarding and all that stuff. And eventually I'm old enough where cars sort of become cool, and I've got these magazines, and I'm looking through these magazines, and there was this little article on drifting, and I remember thinking, I'm gonna do that. And so I had a motorbike at the time. I had a couple of motorbikes at the time actually, and I sold them, and I bought myself a Skyline, which maybe you've heard of that car before, and I gave drifting a crack, and that was like 17 years ago. And so you weren't even that far away with your description. It's kind of like rally, I suppose. Drifting is a form of motorsport. It's really old. It started in Japan in like the 70s. And basically there was this guy that was flogging everyone in races. And so he just started mucking around in the car while he was in the front and started sliding it around the corners. And it grew from there. So it's a competitive sport. Typically on a competitive level, there's two cars. There's a lead car and a chase car, and there's judges. It's judged. It's not like first person over the line. So it's way more intense than a circuit race. Circuit race, you might have 20, 30 laps. So if you screw up one lap, you've got 29 to make up for it. In drifting, you screw up once, you're out.
Right.
And so you do a qualifying run and it gets judged. The judges tell you where they want you to be on the track, and there's lots of criteria like speed, angle, line. It differs between different series, but that's the gist of it. And then you get seeded. So, qualify number one, battles qualify 32, and then if you win, you move on to the next battle. And so in a battle, one car leads, the other one chases. And this is where it gets exciting. The aim of the game is for the chase car to get as close as they can to the lead car. Now, again, you're not driving a straight line. We're full sideways, smoke everywhere, 120 up to 200 kilometers an hour on some tracks.
Oh, God.
And so it's like just craziness. It looks like it's completely out of control.
Yeah, it does.
But it is a very controlled environment. And then you swap. So then you go from chasing to leading, and the judges score you. And if you win, you advance and you go on to the next round until you get to the final.
What's the best? Do you prefer being chased or being
Leading,
the leader?
Yeah. Leading's easier because you're just focusing on what you're doing.
Right.
But when you're chasing, you're trying to emulate the car in front of you, do exactly what they're doing. So it's really hard. It's really hard to do it close. Like when I say close, I mean if you can get your tyre to touch their door, you're doing good.
Oh, wow.
Like, I don't mean like a car length apart. It's like bumping.
Wow.
Yeah.
It looks like, when I've watched you doing it, it looks like out of control choreography.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people relate it to that.
Yeah, to dancing.
To ballet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because it looks like you're, but it does look like you're doing some wild handbrake turn in the dirt and you're going to lose control of the vehicle.
Yeah.
But you're not worried about that in the moment?
No, I mean, certainly when you're learning, it can be a little bit like that. But the more competitive you get in drifting, the cars, that people think it's all about having no grip and doing a big burnout. My competitive cars are like as gripped up as I can get them to be, and it's fast. So it does feel I'm not a pro by any means, but when you get confident, it does feel like you know what you're doing. Like I'm making the car do this and go there, and you are certainly in control.
So you're the kind of guy that you would definitely want on a pissing down wet night.
Yeah.
I'd want you in my Honda driving when it's a thunderstorm and you're going to aquaplane down the Wakehurst Parkway. I want Taylor driving because I wouldn't have to worry. Is that right?
Well, maybe so. I mean, aquaplaning is still pretty scary for everybody, but I definitely know what to do when the car goes sideways.
Yeah. I've heard, and maybe you can confirm for me whether this is true or not, that in situations like drifting, but certainly in other motorsports settings, that the faster you get the car moving, actually the safer it is in terms of the grip on the road that sort of
potentially. Yeah, if you were driving down the highway, I know in Sydney, 100, sometimes you have 110. Like, that's pretty slow for drifting. Yeah. So you could think about driving down the highway at 110 and then forcing your car to go sideways. I can do that and just be like, this is pretty normal. I know this is controlled.
That is batshit crazy. I'm just saying, brother.
I can't wait. We have to get you down. Or
There is no way.
No, you have
No,
to.
mate. Mate.
Work trip.
Mate.
It would be, imagine how
No.
good it would be for the podcast. We have a camera facing at
Yeah,
you.
Mate, you'd have to put me on diazepam, mate. I'd have to be Valiumed
I'll pay
up.
to make it happen.
You've got harnesses, you're covered, like there's big steel bars everywhere. It's safe.
Oh.
Can I ask, because I have so many questions, like how do you get into, like how do you first, can you take me through like the process of going, I think I might want to get into drifting, and like how does that pathway happen?
Pretty much most states in Australia have different series that are run by different people. And so I just went along to a local event here in Tassie. I didn't know anyone. I just rocked up with my car. I didn't really know what the heck I was doing.
Wow.
And an older guy sort of gave me a few tips and pointers. And I just went to every track day that they had and slowly got better and better. I met some of my best friends. In fact, my best friend now I met through drifting. And, you know, we go to Japan now and compete in Japan. And so it's just like everything. You start, you meet some people, you get introduced to different things. Like I knew it existed in Japan, but I never thought I would end up going there. But then, you know, this guy knows this person and they went and they know where to get the car and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, like in Tassie, I'm one of the longest still driving people.
Wow.
It's obviously pretty dominated by younger guys. It's actually the fastest growing motorsport in the world. Well, it was at one stage.
Yeah, wow.
You know how yacht racing and skiing, sports in the snow, alpine adventure, those sort of sports are very expensive to be a part of. And it seems to be like rich kids get to have access to these things. Is motorsport a rich kid's sport?
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. Well, on the pointy end, it always is. Any sort of motorsport on the top end is all about funding.
Yeah.
And there's really only ever two ways for that funding: sponsorship or parents.
Yeah. Wow.
And usually, like often, guys on the very top end have the sponsorship because they have their own businesses.
Okay.
Successful businesses that are sponsoring it. At a grassroots level, drifting is somewhat cheap, but the higher up you go, the more expensive it gets. And it's the same in any kind of motorsport because you could have the most talent in the world and that gets you a long way, but there's a certain point when you need the right gear and that equals money.
And do you have a team that travel with you to care for you and your car when you're on the road?
Kind of. So I've got a bunch of great friends that will come around to the shed and help me out if I need it. And often when I go to the track, there's a few guys that come along and help me out. So it's not like an official team, but one of the biggest supporters of me is one of the elders at our church.
Oh.
He's an absolute legend, loves motorsport. Him and his son are building a drift car and he'll always be at the track helping me out. He's an auto electrician, like one of the best ones around. And so there's definitely a few people. And my brother-in-law, he drives as well, but he doesn't often compete. He'll come and he's a mechanic and he loves getting under there and fixing it. So it's definitely like a team environment, even though it's not a team sport.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit like dancing. You've got your massage therapist, you've got your choreographer, and you've got your orthopedic surgeon. You've got your squadron. You've got your people all around you, right?
Yeah.
Your people that make you the costumes. It's like that. It's extraordinary. Can I ask you about how does your drifting link in with church, or maybe that's not the right angle to go. Maybe we should talk more about your story and how you actually came to know Jesus.
Well, they definitely coincide.
They do, don't they?
We'll get there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
This episode of Filthy Hope is brought to you in partnership with the new podcast from Filthy Hope Studios called Into the Word. Rev Ness and Pastor Jonty, your hosts here on Filthy Hope, will be hosting short, sharp conversations around a single piece of scripture, helping you on your daily journey to dive deeper into the Word of God. This new show from Filthy Hope Studios will be launching on Wednesday, the 3rd of April, and will have its own podcast feed separate from this feed here on Filthy Hope, although we will also be publishing the first handful of episodes right here on this feed too. If you're watching us on YouTube, then Into the Word will be coming to you right here on Filthy Hope Studios. So we invite you to tune in with us from April 3rd as we bring you weekly bite-sized doses of Bible, helping you on your journey into the Word.
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to it before. I didn't grow up in a Christian family, but always knew about God. Quote unquote God. I went to a Catholic primary school, and then I went to a Catholic high school, and so religion wasn't foreign to me. I knew about the gospel. I'd say I knew about the Bible. If you had to ask me what the gospel was, I wouldn't have described it like I would now. I knew who this guy Jesus was. I knew that there was a God. And I knew that when we went up, we had Mass. I knew when we went up the front to do communion, I had to put my hands behind my back because I wasn't allowed to have communion because I wasn't a baptized Catholic. And so I definitely, I always remember knowing, having this feeling of I know about faith, but I'm on the outside of this thing. And frankly, I didn't want to be on the in. As I said, I knew religion, I knew rules. I thought everything attached to faith is just boring. And I don't know if you guys are into the Enneagram, but I'm a 7. Like all I care about is fun, basically. And everything I knew about religion was the opposite of fun. So I was like, that's not for me. And so as I, went through primary school into high school, I always had, I suppose, a disposition in my heart. And a lot of it was around intellect. I always thought I was dumb, which is a very common thing between young people, even adults as well. I think we all probably have moments of that in our life, but it felt really big for me. I was in the bottom math class, the bottom English class. I definitely have dyslexia, but I didn't know that then. And I just really struggled with my self-esteem around that. And so I sort of worked out pretty early on that I could, I suppose, Band-Aid fix that by being the funny, loud guy. And so that was sort of that was my person, that was my character, you might want to say. And I was the funny guy. I would always muck around and get in trouble. But then there was also this other part of me that hated injustice, and I didn't really understand that about myself as a teenager and a young person. And it would flare its head in really unhealthy ways. I would get in fights with the bullies, and I'd stand up for the young guy that's getting picked on. I didn't even care about him, but I just hated that injustice thing. And it was just a bit of an excuse, honestly, to punch on with someone and let out some of that pent up, anxiety even of not being comfortable with who I was and not feeling good enough. And so as I roll into high school, I remember sort of the party scene came on to my viewpoint. And I remember thinking, that's it. Like, that's how you get some, street credit, you might say. Like, that's how people start to notice you and you get your self-worth. I mean, that's not the words that I would have used, but that's certainly what the feeling was. And I grew up in a pretty typical Aussie family. Dad would have a beer after work and, Christmas time, whatever, uncles would all come over. And, like, alcohol wasn't alien to me, but it was just something I never really cared about. Never had any drinks before. And yeah, like I said, the party scene came around. I'm like, shit, I could go to a party and get smashed and everyone's going to talk about me the next day at school and I'm going to be the cool guy.
Are you 16? Are we talking?
Year
10?
Yes, yeah, year 9.
Year 9.
It was the year 9 holiday, so I was nearly in year 10.
Right. Okay,
that's
pretty young.
Pretty young.
That's way under the
the
drinking
legal
age.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so I remember having that revelation. Let's find myself to a party, and I ended up going to a mate's house, going motorbike riding. There was me and another friend stayed at this other guy's house, and on the way home from riding the motorbikes, the guy that was staying at his house, he said, "Hey, how about we see if Dad will stop at the bottle shop and buy something to drink?" And I'm thinking, yes, this is it. I've been wanting to do this. I'm going to be cool. I'm going to get drunk. That's what everyone's doing. That's what it felt like. Everyone, of course, it wasn't everyone, but it felt like that. And so we stop at the bottle shop. My mate's dad goes in and he bought a carton of Red Bear, which I don't even know if they make it anymore. It's like the 90s kids cruises, basically.
Okay.
And
Delicious.
yeah, and so I think it was like 36 cans, which is a shitload for 3 teenage boys, and super high percentage alcohol. I can't remember what it was, but super high. He gets us a thing of ice as well. We go home, unload the motorbikes, whatever, have some dinner, put the drinks in the esky, put some ice in there, and they lived on a bit of property, so we did what was very normal for me, little campfire, and sat around the campfire and started to have a few drinks. I'd gone camping with my dad and his brother, my uncle, cousins, and that's what they always did. They'd have some drinks and talk about way back when, and it was fun and it was cool. I'm like, let's do that. And we start drinking. I was having a hell of a time. We were talking about all sorts of things, mostly girls, but talking about school and the teachers we like and the teachers we don't like and what we want to do after school and blah, blah, blah. And I just remember drinking and having more drinks and starting to feel the effects of getting drunk. And it was such an alien feeling to me. Never experienced anything like that before. And we were calling people and carrying on and just having a wow of a time. And as the night went on, I just remember, going past tipsy into drunk. And I remember getting up to, go and pee on some poor tree and being like all stumbly and blah, blah, blah.
Over the waterfall.
Yeah, that's right. And then I remember darkness, really. I don't remember hearing anything. I don't remember seeing anything. But I remember being aware that it was really dark. And I thought, man, this is weird. What the heck is going on? And I sort of tried to focus, and I could hear this faint noise in the background. And it was my friend, and he was just yelling. And as I listened, I realized he was yelling my name. He was going, "Taylor, Taylor." And I still can't say anything. And then I remember him saying, "Taylor, you've fallen into the fire." And I just remember I remember opening my eyes, and I was laying on the ground, and my 2 mates were looking at me, but this one guy was just yelling at me. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I remember thinking either this is like a terrible joke or you're being serious. And before I had a moment to give it too much thought, the same friend was jamming my head in the esky that was now empty of cans. So we drank 36 cans between the 3 of us, my first time ever drinking. And I remember I took the last one. And so I drank a heck of it. Like, I drank enough to make any grown adult absolutely smashed, let alone a 16-year-old never drunk before. And I distinctly remember this. I got out of the esky, pulled my head out of the esky, and they were freaking out. Like, they were way more freaked out than me. And I remember for some reason, I don't know who suggested it, but we literally got on our hands and knees and prayed that it was a dream. Now, we all went to this Catholic school. None of us had any kind of faith background, like completely non-Christian families. But for some reason, we were compelled just to pray in this moment. And even like in thinking back now, I have no idea why we did that. It was so random. I think the truth is we were just shitting ourselves. We were like, we don't know what to do. Who's bigger and better than us? Let's ask that big guy that we've heard about.
Wow.
And I remember praying like, in whatever language I use, could this be a dream, please? Like,
wow.
could this not be real? But it was very real. We get up inside. We wake my friend's dad up, who, You can say it however you want. Just let us go, be wild. He didn't come check on us, nothing, which now that I'm a parent, I'm like, that shit's so irresponsible. But we woke him up and like freaking out. And he's like, what happened? What happened? And we say, look, Taylor passed out and fell off the camp chair into the fire. What do we do? And it's sort of a bit blurry, this part of the story, because obviously I'm absolutely, excuse my French, shit-faced. I'm freaking out, and I'm so confused. And next time I remember, I'm in the shower. They chucked me in the shower, and looking back, I know now that the dad was trying to sober me up a little bit, even though we know that it really does not much. But I hop out of the shower, and this is the first time of 2 times I looked at myself this night. I see myself in the mirror, and the truth is, it actually wasn't that bad. My face was just white and my hand was white. And I remember thinking, super naively, all right, maybe we can go to the hospital and they'll give me some sort of cream. I can stay another 1 or 2 nights at my friend's place and mum and dad won't even have to know. Like, because my parents had no idea. And so I kind of had like this little bit of like maybe some light at the end of the tunnel. And also I wasn't in any pain yet, which if you've burnt yourself, you must be thinking like, that's weird. How could you not be in any pain? But I'll get to that. So we go hop in the car, 3 boys in the back, mate's dad's in the front. And before we leave, he turns to us and he says, all right, boys, this is the deal. We're going to have to come up with a story because if you tell anyone the truth, now, if I was just to pause there, my parents, they're on a journey of faith, but I wouldn't say they're all in yet. But they are so close. They have so many of the hallmarks of a Christian, and truth telling is one of them. There's a big thing in our family that you tell the truth. And I'm confronted now with this guy saying to me, if you tell the truth, the thing that your parents have taught you your whole entire life, I'm going to go to jail. And he didn't say it, but he might as well have said, and it's all your fault. And I remember, like, as a 16-year-old, first time drinking, absolutely smashed, falling into a fire. Then your best mate's dad saying, if you tell the truth, I'm going to jail. You hear people talk about the weight of the world on their shoulders. I remember just being like, oh, this is heavy. Like, I don't know what to do. And so we drive to the hospital. It's about a 20-minute drive. And I don't remember much, but what I do remember is no one talking. Like, after we come up with our story, no one said anything. We get to the hospital, we park out the front, and my mate's dad, turns to us and says, all right, let's run over the story again. And the story that we come up with, very simple. I was carrying some wood and I tripped and fell into the fire. That was what we're going with. We weren't drinking, hanging out, tripped, fell into the fire. We go into emergency. The nurse come rushing over, asks us what happened, tell them the story. I tripped, fell into the fire. And they take me into this big room. I don't know how much of it is just made up in my head or the reality, but I just remember this room being massive, heaps of beds, and no one else was in there. There probably was, but I was just in my own zone. My friends stayed in the waiting room with my mate's dad, and they sit me on this bed, lay me down. They get a big bucket of ice water to put my hand in. Like I said, I burnt my hand, and they're sort of rushing around. And the nurse came over to me and she said, Taylor, tell me what happened tonight. And of course, I've got this, like, that line, it's going to jail, it's going to jail. Don't you freaking tell the truth, it's going to jail. And I'm like, oh, I tripped and fell in the fire. And she goes, oh, okay. So tell me, Taylor, were you drinking tonight? And I'm like, no, we weren't drinking, no. And it would have been so obvious.
Oh,
it
man.
would have been so freaking obvious.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, no, not at all. I'm probably slurring every word.
Oh, yeah, and smelling like booze.
Yeah. And so, that's sort of fussing around, getting ready for whatever. I'm just in my own little world. And she asked me like 3 times. And I remember every time I was like, nah. And one of the reasons why she kept asking me, and it's also the reason why I wasn't in any pain yet, she wanted to give me morphine. Now, if you know anything about medicine, and I'm not an expert in this, but all I know is morphine and alcohol in your blood is like, it's probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
And so she was trying to gauge, how much I've been drinking, because she knew. She definitely knew. And so, I'm still sticking to this thing that I haven't been drinking. And so the reason why I wasn't in any pain was because it was a 3rd-degree burn. So it actually burnt all the way through my nerves.
Yeah.
And she knew that it was going to hit me like a ton of bricks. So
Yeah.
she was trying to juice me up, basically, so that when it came, I wouldn't be,
in shock,
distraught. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I assume they gave it to me. By the grace of God, there was no effects by that. I don't know what happened with that, but I definitely didn't tell her the truth. And then I remember saying to this nurse, I don't know how polite I was. I was a very polite kid, so I probably still said it pretty politely. But I remember saying, I need to go to the toilet. Can I go to the toilet? And I'd never been in hospital. Never broken a bone, nothing. And I remember she came back with this weird looking bottle thing. And I was like, what is that? And she's like, you're pissing it, Taylor. And I'm like, no, I don't. And I remember being like, I can see the toilet door. Like, let me get up out of this bed and go to the toilet. And I was a pretty stubborn young guy as well. And there was a bit of back and forth. She's like, no, it's fine, Taylor, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, please, let me go to the toilet. And I remember so clearly, I remember so clearly getting up out of that bed. And as I pulled my hand out of that ice tray of water, I remember looking at my hand and watching the skin fall off like a glove and just float in this water. And I was like, shit. That was the first real moment when I was like, okay, maybe I'm not getting some cream and this is going to be like a 2-dayer. And I sort of,
oh, buddy.
I know, right? And I sort of somberly walk over to the toilet and I do a pee and I turn around to leave and there's a mirror right next to the door. And I look into this mirror and I don't even know how to describe it, but I just remember looking and thinking, what is that? Like there was just not one part of Taylor that I could recognize. And it is a surreal feeling, I tell you. It is such a weird thing to look in the mirror and just see a monster looking back at you. And I somberly walked back to my bed. I lay down and I put my hand back in that water and I just remember being just flooded with emotions. It was almost like it's not like my life flashed before my eyes, but I certainly remember having this thought process of, you've really effed this up, Taylor. Like, you're never going to get a job. You're never going to have friends. Like, from a very early age, I wanted to be a dad. Like, I was this young guy that would grab any baby I could, even as like, preteen. I just loved kids. I loved babies. I always wanted to be a dad. And I just remember thinking, that's gone. There's no way you're going to get married. You're never going to have kids. You've just completely screwed up your life, you absolute idiot. And it was a super, super dark place. But then I had this tiny glimmer of hope. There was another light at the end of the tunnel. And again, it was just as naive as the first one. I remember thinking to myself, when my mum gets here, she'll fix it. Now, I have such a beautiful relationship with my mum. I don't want to cry, but she's like, she always was, always will be, like just a hero, like a real hero. And she's, 5 foot nothing. But I'm telling you, you don't want to mess with Vicky because she'll kick your ass.
Go, Vicky.
Yeah, she's just one of them little pocket rockets. And I remember thinking, when Mum gets here, she'll fix it. I was like, she'll kick down the door and she'll just tell these doctors what to do. Like, she'll fix it. Mum fixes stuff. That's what my mum does. Super naive, but kind of cool, really.
Very cool.
And I sort of held on to that little glimmer. Now, what I didn't know is what was happening in the background is they had called my parents. The hospital called my parents and said, "Hey, your Taylor's fallen into a fire. You need to get here." And so they're like, "Yep, hang up." And so they are 20-minute drive. They probably did it in 10. You know, they are absolutely flying there. They know no details. They're freaking out. Like, is he going to die? Is like, you know, whatever. And as a parent, you know I would be going to the worst.
Oh, yes.
They arrive at hospital, they walk into the emergency, and my friends are still there. And my friend's dad says to my parents, "Don't worry, it's just like a bad sunburn." So my parents have gone from he's dying, like what's going to happen, to, oh, this relief, it's just a bad sunburn. So then my mum walks in feeling a little bit better. You know, she's like, "Oh, all right, it's not that bad." And I remember seeing her coming, and she didn't say a word, and she got closer and closer. And I'm sure every step she got closer, she could see a little bit better. She could see a little bit clearer. This idea of a bad sunburn is completely out the window. And maybe it didn't quite happen like this, but this is how I recall it. She just stood. My dad was there, but I don't really remember him too much in this time of the story. But she just stood over my bed and looked at me as if to say, "Who are you? And what have you done with my son?"
Oh, my
And I
gosh.
tell you, it was bad when I walked out of the bathroom, but
Yeah.
after that, I was like, shit.
Hello, it is me, Pastor Jonty, coming to you from the set of Filthy Hope, interrupting this episode just briefly to tell you a little bit about one of our new ventures here at Filthy Hope, which is our blog. If you're a fan or a listener of what we do here at Filthy Hope, then you might enjoy getting more of that in the written form. So whether it be reflections on some of the topics that we talk about on the podcast, or just other topics that we are interested in at the moment, whether they be theological, religious, cultural, maybe about a film or a book. Ness and I are going to be writing some pieces and also some guest writers over there. So if that sounds like it is up your alley, then go and find it at unitingheartandsoul.org/filthy-hope. The link for that will be down below in the show notes of this episode. We hope to see you there, and we hope you enjoy it. But that's all. Back to the episode.
I just remember feeling so alone, like so abandoned, and not in a mean way. You know, my parents didn't do anything, but that's just how I felt. I just remember feeling like, you've done this, and now you're paying the price. Like you've gone too far, and your life is over.
Wow.
And I just really just remember that, like that dark, dark night of the soul almost moment as a 16-year-old. And so, moving on from there, the doctors decided that they would fly me to Hobart, which is about a 4-hour drive. But they put us in like this little private jet thing. And my dad came with me then. I remember that. I remember going in an ambulance. I remember by the time, so I went from the hospital in an ambulance to the airport, which is only like 10 minutes down the road. I just remember getting into the plane. I remember my dad being with me. By the time we landed in Hobart, which I'm not sure how long the flight was, but it wouldn't have been long. There's no way it would have been longer than an hour. I remember getting pulled out of the plane and into the ambulance and then into the hospital. And I just remember seeing the flashing lights as they were pushing me down the hallway. My face was so swollen that my eyes were physically shut. Like I could not open my eyes. My lips were so big that I couldn't talk. My nostrils were tight. I couldn't breathe through my nostrils. There's photos. I mean, we have some photos that were a few weeks in, and they are terrifying. The ones like in this moment of the story is like, just bad. My chin was down on my chest, like my face was like a balloon.
Far out.
And so I spent 3 months in hospital. in the peds unit. I had my own room because of infections and whatnot, and it was a wild time. There was a few things that sort of were pivotal in that space. The first one is that, as you can imagine, every single day, doctors, nurses, and psychiatrists all ask me the same question. Hey,
What
Taylor, were you drinking that night? What happened? Tell us the story. And I'm like, nope, don't do it, Taylor. He's going to go to jail. And like, it just weighed heavy on me. And I just kept on, same thing, tripped and fell in fire, tripped and fell in fire, tripped and fell in fire. But on top of all that, I think something broke inside of me. And I was just emotional lockdown, nothing. Not happy, not sad, just indifferent. I remember I made the nurses tape up the mirror in my room because I just hated who I was. I did not want to see myself. I did not want to see anyone. I didn't want my friends to come visit me. I didn't want my mum and dad to see me. I got a younger brother. I didn't want him to come see me. I made my parents promise that my brother wouldn't come see me. And I didn't know this until, a few years ago now, but they used to sneak him in at night time when I was asleep to come see me because, like, for all he knew, I was dead. And when I heard that, I was a mess when I found that out. And I remember this is a little bit in. I remember my mum just really convincing me that it would be a great idea for some of my friends to come see me. And I was still like, nah, I don't want to. But I caved eventually, and I think 3 friends came, but I only remember 2 of them, all separate occasions. I remember one of my friends coming in, and he walked into the room, and I'm laying on the bed. I wasn't very mobile. I sort of just laid there most of the day watching TV or whatever. And he walked into the room and he looked at me and he didn't say a word. And I kid you not, he full on fainted and just hit the deck.
Oh, man.
Wow.
And I'm like, am I that bad? Like, am I that much of a monster that you would faint seeing me? Another one of my friends she was a lovely, lovely girl. I used to always sit next to her in class because she was so smart and she would let me copy her answers.
Shout out to her. Shout out to her.
She was a gem. She got me through high school. But I'd love to have a conversation with this girl again. But I kid you not, she never ever talked to me ever again, ever. Wow. And I don't know if that's because of the friendship dynamic of when the truth came out, or if she was just so freaked out about what she's seen that she just couldn't come to grips with talking to me. So while I was in hospital, I had a whole heap of surgery. I had to get a skin graft on my hand. So I don't know if you can see, my hand's like a big scar. They took a big chunk of skin off my leg. The doctors have such bad bedside manner. Like,
don't they?
What's with that? I remember him saying to me, so Taylor, it's basically like an electric cheese grater, and we're going to take a big chunk of skin off your leg, and we're going to staple it onto your hand. And so I had like all these staples all the way in between my fingers, and I had a skin graft from behind my ear. You can probably see the skin graft underneath my eye there. I had to have another one on top of my eyelid, which, by the way, they nailed the one on top of my eyelid. You can't see it, but they screwed up the one that you can see. Like, come on, guys. I had to get my mouth cut open because my mouth had shrunken in. It still is. Like, if you don't, please don't do it. It'd be weird next time you see me. But if you put your hand inside my mouth, you can feel where the scars are, where it's smaller. They had to cut my nose open because, like I said, my nose had shrunk in, but once the swelling went down, the scar tissue had closed my nose over. So I can't pick my nose, even with my pinky. Do you know how freaking annoying that is?
You have been
it's
robbed.
It's honestly
robbed.
Like when you got the sharp ones, the sharp
to get
boogers,
right
like
up there.
razor
I know,
blade.
to get right in.
I'm like blowing them out. It's like going on someone. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, I can't pick my nose. You know, and I think it makes me snore. That's at least the excuse that I tell my wife. So I had to get my nose cut open. For ages after being out of hospital, I used to have to roll up earbuds and put them in my nose
Have
to
a
try to
pick.
stretch.
Oh,
Well,
to
just
get
to
it
stretch it.
it.
Yeah, just to stretch it. I had to get something called dermabrasion, which is
Oh.
like, I joke, it's like exfoliating. You know, girls like, yeah, I know what that is. You know, you get a bit of a coffee grind and you rub it on your face. So I got the real deal, honey. Where they literally got an orbital sander, you know, spinning and sandpapered my face with this thing. It was just wild times. But every night and every morning, the nurses and the doctors had to clean my wounds on my face and on my hand, and they would give me morphine. I remember one time specifically, I was so high on morphine, like proper high, I thought I was flying over the roof of my house. I remember like flapping my arms like they were wings, looking at the roof of my house. Like I was tripping majorly, but yet I was still in excruciating pain. Like I remember that contrast of being so high on morphine, but still like this hurts so much. And that happened every morning and every night for 3 months. And so hospital, it sucked. You know, it was the pits.
At 16,
At 16,
when
yeah.
you're meant to be having your first kiss and you're falling in love with girls and you're trying to look hot and have your best hairdos and you've just
and
missed
I'm just
that
falling in
piece.
the fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the doctor said to me and my family that if I was in the fire for one more second, that I would have died. I don't think they used the word miracle, but I'm going to put that in there. They said I was lucky. I'm going to go with miracle that my nose didn't get burnt off. You know, that I could still see. That I still got lips. You know, my ear got burnt. I still got my ears. Like it could have just. I know I'm not Australia's next top model, right? But I could have been a lot. Let me rephrase that. I should have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
And so after 3 months, I get to go home, and I tell you, I was itching to get home. And I do remember leaving the hospital for the first time, being so embarrassed. You know, I had to. I wish I could show you pictures to really help paint the picture, but I did not look like what I look like now. Like half of my face was as red as red, and the other half of my face was white, and it was like. It was pussy and it was just gross. And I just remember being so embarrassed. Like they pushed me out in a wheelchair and I just had my head down and I was just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want you to see me. I just want to not exist. And we go home and I remember sitting on the couch with mum and dad and, you know, they're sitting beside me. And they did the classic, beautiful mum and dad thing. We're so proud of you. You've been so brave. And I just remember I couldn't hold it anymore.
Yeah.
I just cracked it. And like I said, in hospital, I was just non-emotional. Didn't cry, didn't laugh, nothing. But when they said that to me, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just bawled my eyes out, just absolutely sobbing in their arms. And I said, Mum, Dad, I didn't trip and fall into a fire. I was drunk and I passed out. And they knew, everyone knew.
Yes.
We were calling people, just physically. When you fall, you put your hands out.
Right.
They are not burnt.
Yes.
The backside of my hand got burnt. Yeah, when you fall in a fire, you don't lay there for a few seconds. You get out really quickly.
Fast. Yes.
Like it was so obvious that there was something else that had happened, but no one had said anything, and no one wanted to get anyone in trouble, and we were just shit scared. I know that was my story, and I'm sure my friend didn't want his dad to get in big trouble. Like I get that, and so anyway, the truth come out, and I tell mum and dad, and they were, you know, for lack of a better word, pissed off. You know, they knew, but it's confirmed now.
Yep.
And that sort of started, I suppose, a little side shoot of my story, which is the fact that in most states, I'm pretty sure it was only Tasmania, and there was another state, I can't remember which one though. We had very different underage drinking laws. We were way looser than the other states, and essentially, there was no law broken. So if I was to make it as understandable as possible, and I'm pretty sure this is factually correct, at that time, someone over the age of 18 could supply a minor with alcohol as long as they were on their property, they couldn't get in trouble. So I could give as much alcohol as I wanted to a 10-year-old. He thinks he's Superman. He climbs up on my roof because he can fly, hits the ground. Sorry, I shouldn't have done it, but, here's what it is. Like, that was, and my mum was like, what?
Wow.
Like, how is that allowed? Like, where is the parental permission? Where is the, duty of care, all that stuff? And so for 5 years, my pocket rocket mother lobbied to get that law changed. And so that law literally got changed in Tasmania because of me. Like,
Wow.
not like it was one of the things that led to that. No, literally because of what happened to me, that law got changed.
Go, Vicky.
Yeah, go Vicky, right? And
Vicky.
she was just ruthless. She would just annoy every politician, anyone she could. And she has these folders. We were on the newspaper. We were in, Woman's Weekly. We were getting flown to Melbourne and doing interviews on the ABC radio. Like, it was. She went hard.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling, when my mum finds Jesus, the devil, he better watch out. Like,
Badass, Vicky.
yeah, I know. And so, that got changed because of me. And I speak in schools, all around. And often when I share that part of the story, you got the cool kid at the back and he's like, Taylor, you've ruined it for me, like especially in terms of like, I can't get drunk now because of you. And I try to find him. Like, I'm like scouring the group and I'm like, I want to find who you are. And I look him straight in the eye and I say, I just call it out. I know you're probably annoyed about that. You're annoyed that you can't get your big sister's boyfriend to buy you alcohol now. And I just say, I couldn't give a shit. Yeah. Because I care way more about you than what you think about me. I believe what God has installed in you. I believe that there's purpose and passion and so many things inside you. And the devil would love to steal it by taking you out in all sorts of ways. And so I couldn't care less. And then I try to shift to, I've been a youth pastor for 15 years now, and I've had too many stories of young girls that have got drunk and things have happened that they just regret. And, I'm flying back tears as I say that. And I'm like, you're a princess and you should be treated like a princess. And so I am so glad that you're pissed off at me. I am so glad that you can't get drunk because of me, because, and the reality is, statistically, you're probably not going to fall in a fire. You're probably not going to have that. But who's to say it wouldn't be your brother or your sister or your niece or your nephew, or maybe even one day your very own kids? Yeah. And wouldn't you have wanted someone to stand up for them? Wouldn't you have wanted someone to put down some rules, some boundaries to keep them safe?
And we're back. We will return to that because there's so much more to his story. That
it feels cruel to stop it.
I know.
It feels
I know.
mean.
You'll have to tune back in next week for part 2 of that, because it
keeps
more
going.
And more. It just keeps coming. But yeah, I find his story so inspiring. And certainly, like, I never had any experiences with alcohol to that degree of severity, but certainly as like a teenage boy growing up in Australia, like, I've had interactions with the alcohol culture in Australia amongst young men. Yeah. And I've seen how that can
turn
seemingly, like, in a split second, turn from calm, everyone's enjoying themselves, everyone's safe, to all of a sudden
detrimental.
Like, trouble. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a really great, not great, but it's such a strong and evocative story that really, I think, can serve as such a warning or a cautionary tale of something that can seem so innocuous that all of a sudden, like literally within a split second, has had such a detrimental effect. Not just for Taylor, but as
you
you
can
heard.
die.
Yeah.
Just down.
Yeah.
Unbelievable story. And the next part of the story is just phenomenal to hear where he has been formed and where he's going with his mission and how God is shaping his life. It's just so tune into that one.
Yeah.
It's a terrific story.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and he's just super inspirational, and he's such a chill, nice guy to chat to as
Beautiful
well.
human.
Yeah. To finish off this week, let's have a question from a listener.
Okay.
I reckon. This
What have you got?
question. What have we got here? We got a whole bunch that I'm going to pick from. If Jesus was alive today, this is a great question. If Jesus was alive today, what would you want to ask him?
I think my questions are about biology. They're things about the body. Do you know what I mean?
My instant reaction is, why does my back hurt?
Right.
And why does it not get better?
Yeah.
Can you fix that, please?
Yeah. What is it a design fault?
Yeah.
And the thing, I remember my little girls saying to me, when they become teenage girls, Mum, why do girls get period pain?
Yeah.
And why boys don't have to deal with that? I think I really kind of want to talk to God about that. Like God has created the perfect world and created us perfectly, and he said it was good. It was very good. But hang on a minute, Lord. You've left us women some women, maybe not all women, needing Nurofen and Ponstan, every 4 weeks, and in major discomfort for a couple of days for some women. Why, Lord? Coming in close to the camera now, Lord. Why? What is that about, brother?
Even like, is it endometriosis? Is that the right name?
Yes.
I have a couple of close friends who
yeah.
have had a really rough time with that.
Oh.
And it's specific to
Why?
to women, and why?
Yeah.
It seems like a design flaw to me. But anyway,
I'm sure it's not. It's not, I'm sure. But that is, when I get to heaven, I will be asking God about that.
yeah.
Just honestly, I just want to know about that piece.
Yeah.
And there's other things. Phlegm. Like, what is that?
We're just going through, like, from head to
All the
toe. We'll go
things.
through.
And earwax. And I know it cleans the ear, but like, what is that? People that get plugs of wax in their ear and have to have it removed.
Yeah.
Like, why do some people get chunks of that stuff? Like, why, Lord? Why? Do I sound shallow?
Well, to give maybe a more, not that those aren't serious questions, but
Yeah.
like I definitely think that I would, if I were face to face with the risen Christ.
You didn't say it like that when you posed the question.
If Jesus is alive and you could ask him anything, that's the question.
Now I feel like I've gone all shallow. Okay, now what would you say then?
Well,
Now you've said it like that. Now you sound like you're really intelligent.
well, that's just what the question was.
Go on then.
I reckon, like for me, I would have some serious questions. Like, I'd be selfish. I'd be asking, like, am I on the right path?
Okay. Yep.
What choices? If you've got this plan for me, can you give me a heads up on some of the choices I should make along the way? Because I think I've spoken about this before. I always have this sense of like receding time and wanting to make sure that I make the most of the time that I've been given.
Bless.
And I get really anxious thinking about if I make the wrong decision, the wrong life decision, the wrong career decision, the wrong whatever, how much time that wastes.
Yes.
Which already hearing myself say that, there's elements to that I'm like, wherever you are along the path, that's where you're meant to be. And I understand that. But I think I'd be selfish and ask for some really specific guidance. Yeah.
I've got one.
Yeah, great. Hit me.
You know how theologians, and I'm in the middle of doing my master's at the moment, so I'm up to my eyeballs in reading what other great theologians think about God. I kind of want to say to God, hey, Lord, what do you think about all the theologians that have written all these books, presuming that they know you? presuming that they have come up with all these great theories about the Trinity and what that means, and coming up with all the different thought processes to box in you. What do you think about us when we do that stuff?
Yeah.
And does it need to be that complex?
Yeah.
And have we kind of missed the point? I think I want to have a conversation with him about that.
Interesting. Yeah. What a great question.
Oh, it's a great question, isn't it?
So if you want to take part in this show and ask us questions, we've got such a big backlog that we're going to do some more probably Q&A episodes, but we're going to try and get through some just at the end of some episodes like this as well. filthyhopepod@gmail.com, or join our Facebook group, which you can find a link to down below. We prioritize the stuff that we get in the Facebook group. So if you want to chat to us more directly, that's where to do it.
And what would you ask Jesus?
Yeah, let us know. That's a great...
I want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to read out those answers because you're smarter than I am. So give it to me, baby.
If you are a listener of Into the Word, we will see you tomorrow for that. And at the point at which this is coming out, there will be a live show being announced soon. Keep an eye on our socials for that. Come hang out with us in person. And next week we will be back for more with Taylor.
Yay!
We'll see you then. Have a good one.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that is in yours, and find hope in understanding. Life is not a game you have to win. Forgiveness overwhelming, salvation not deserving. You are loved by something.